Chapter 17 of Murder in the Maze by JJ Connington. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Siege of the Maze. Wendover was awakened next morning in an unfamiliar bedroom to find Sir Clinton at his side. The chief constable's eyes were tired, as though he had very little sleep, but otherwise he seemed as alert as usual. "Come on, Squire," he said. "Dress as quick as you can. You needn't mind shaving for once. You've been clamoring for the arrest of the murderer for long enough now, so I thought you'd like to be in at the death. I've got an appointment with him this morning, so you'd better hurry up if you want to see the last scenes in the Whistlefield dramatic entertainment." Wendover had been rubbing his eyes rather sleepily when he awoke, but Sir Clinton's words stimulated him into activity. "Go on with your dressing and don't talk," Sir Clinton replied to his questions. "I haven't time to explain things just now. There'll be a good deal of explaining to be done in the end," he added gloomily, "so we may as well make one bite at it." Wendover hurried over his toilet, and soon he and Sir Clinton descended the stair and made their way to the front door. The figure of Stennis was plainly visible in the light of the early morning. "So it was Stennis? Somehow I thought it might have been he," Wendover whispered, while they were still at a distance. "I've got appointments with several people this morning," Sir Clinton said sharply. "Ardsley's another of them. You needn't start suspecting everyone, Squire, or you'll have a busy time. No questions till later." He stepped forward and greeted the secretary. "Where's the gun room, Stennis? It may be as well to pick up something useful." The secretary led them down some passages. If he was surprised by Sir Clinton's methods, he showed no visible sign. When they reached the gun room, each selected a shotgun and ammunition under Sir Clinton's orders. Wendover noticed that the chief constable picked out a couple himself. "One's for Ardsley," he explained in answer to Wendover's glance of surprise. "Come along. He'll be waiting for us outside, I expect." When they reached the front door again, Ardsley was just stepping out of his car. Sir Clinton motioned him back into the driving seat and directed the others to get into the motor. "The maze, if you please, Ardsley," he said, when they had seated themselves. Wendover was completely at sea for a few moments. It was plain that both Ardsley and Stennis must be regarded as cleared in the eyes of the chief constable, or he would not have brought them there and taken the trouble to arm them. But if they were excluded, the murderer must belong to a very small group. And suddenly Wendover saw his way through the whole intricacy of the Whistlefield case. "Of course! Young Torrance, he's the man!" But he was careful not to utter his views aloud, fearing to draw the fire of Sir Clinton, who was sitting beside him with drawn brows. Wendover felt it better to pursue his line of thought silently. "What an ass I've been! Young Torrance was in the maze when the two Shandons were killed. He was somewhere or other about, probably, when Ernest was attacked. Clinton has most likely tracked him down without saying anything about it. And when Silvio was shot, he wasn't with us in the room. They said he was playing billiards by himself. Quite likely he sneaked out of the billiard-room window, crept round, did the shooting, and got back under cover while we were all too taken aback by the business to do anything. If I'd been a shade quicker that night, I'd have got him. And last night, when Arthur was attacked, Torrance had gone for a walk alone. It's obvious. And like an idiot, I didn't see it. All one needed was a pencil and paper and a list of the people who were actually on hand on each occasion, and then, by elimination, one was bound to get at him straight away. He pondered over his own obtuseness for a time, while the car ran down the road towards the maze, but his train of thought was interrupted by Ardsley pulling up at a word from Sir Clinton. A uniformed constable stepped forward from the shelter of a clump of bushes, and Wendover saw with surprise that he had a revolver in his belt. "Everything all right?" demanded Sir Clinton, as the constable saluted. "Yes, sir. It went exactly as you told us. About a quarter of an hour ago we saw him hurrying along the road." "Just so," Sir Clinton interrupted. "I watched him leaving the house." "He went into the maze, sir, and as soon as he was well inside, we followed your orders and put the padlocks on all the gates. He's tried to get out once, sir, but as soon as he saw us he ran back into the maze." "You didn't try to catch him, of course?" "No, sir. Your orders were strict about that, and we kept to them." "Quite right. Now you've got the stuff up, haven't you?" "It's over there, sir." Well, bring me the megaphone. We'll need to talk to him before we can do anything further. While the constable was fetching the instrument, they got out of the car. Wendover, when he found himself on the road, gazed across at the green barriers of the maze behind which the murderer was lurking. Sir Clinton's tactics were plain enough in their final phase, though Wendover could not understand how the chief constable had been so sure of running the miscreant down in the particular way he had chosen. He turned at the sound of steps to find the constable had come back with the megaphone, a battered instrument which had probably seen service at police sports in the past. Sir Clinton took it from his subordinate and then called the attention of the group about the car. I want you people to take careful note of what happens from now onwards. You may have to give evidence about it, so please pay attention to everything that happens. Wendover noticed that Sir Clinton's voice had lost its usual tinge of humor. Quite obviously he regarded the situation as grave, and his tone was that of a man who sees difficulties ahead, but means to overcome them if possible. As soon as he was certain that all the group were on the alert, the chief constable raised the megaphone and spoke towards the maze. Ernest Shandon, I have a warrant here for your arrest. I call on you to surrender. Come to the gate nearest the road within 5 minutes and give yourself up. He's got a pistol, sir, the constable hastened to add to his previous report, and an air gun, too. He had them in his hands as he went into the maze. Sir Clinton raised the megaphone again. Before you come to the gate, you must throw your weapons over the hedge. You can't get away, Shandon. You may as well come out quietly. His voice echoed across the lawns, but from the recesses of the maze came no reply. 5 minutes from now, Sir Clinton said finally, and put down the megaphone. He glanced at his wristwatch as he did so. He won't come out, of course, but I'm anxious to do everything in a justifiable way, he explained. He's had fair warning. They stood uneasily about, furtively consulting their watches until the 5-minute period had elapsed. But no sign came from the maze. Wendover was completely puzzled by the turn of events. How could Ernest Shandon be the murderer? When the attempt had been made on Arthur, Ernest Shandon had been sitting within 10 feet of Wendover himself, under the eye of Sir Clinton, and the attack had been carried out here at the entrance to the maze. Then, floating through his mind, came a recollection of Sir Clinton's hint that a man might be on both halves of the map simultaneously. But that was impossible. No man could be in 2 places at once. The whole affair seemed to verge on a nightmare inconsistency. And yet Sir Clinton had evidently foreseen the attempt to escape, and had taken precautions to prevent it being successful. And undoubtedly it must be Ernest Shandon in the maze, for the local constables must have recognized him from their hiding places as he went in. When the 5 minutes' grace had elapsed, Sir Clinton turned round, but as he did so, his eye was caught by a new figure which was advancing over the lawns. "Oh, damnation!" he exclaimed angrily. "Here's the very thing I wanted to avoid." Wendover, following Sir Clinton's glance, recognized Arthur Hawkhurst hurrying towards them, and as he approached, the squire could see that he was carrying a sporting rifle in his hand. "You gave me the slip," Arthur said reproachfully, as he came up to them. "But I spotted what you were after. Heard you moving about and dressed in next to no time. I'm a bit out of breath with the hurry." Sir Clinton looked at him sternly. "If you come here at all, Mr. Hawkhurst, you come under my orders. If you can't agree to that, I'll have to see that you're sent back to the house." Arthur frowned heavily. Then, after a moment's thought, he evidently made up his mind to accept the inevitable. "Very well, then. If you put it like that, there's no more to be said. But if the beggar attempts to escape, I suppose I may wing him?" He touched his rifle as he spoke. "You'll do exactly as you're told." Sir Clinton evidently had no wish to be distracted from his main problem. His voice had a ring in it which impressed even Arthur. "What's it all about?" he demanded from Wendover, in a lowered tone. "Your uncle's the murderer, it seems, and Sir Clinton's got him trapped in the maze." Arthur looked at him in amazement. "I say, you know, Wendover, that'll take a bit of thinking over, won't it?" He said no more, and Wendover could believe that Arthur, like himself, was conning over the whole of the Whistlefield case, and being brought up against the apparent impossibilities of the chief constable's solution of the problem. At length Arthur lifted his head again. Well, if he didn't do it, he has only to come out and say so. If he didn't do it. His voice died away into silence. Then he added, I promised myself to square up for Sylvia, and I'll do that no matter who the man is. He dropped his rifle to the order and waited patiently for the next move, keeping his eyes fixed on the impenetrable hedges of the maze. Sir Clinton waited for a few minutes longer. Then he seemed to have exhausted the limit which he had set for himself. You see the situation? He demanded, turning to the others. He's in there. He refuses to come out. We've got to get him. I suppose you're going to starve him out? Wendover inquired as Sir Clinton stopped short. Too risky. He might get away in the dark when night comes on. I don't say he could, but I'm going to take no risks. Then I suppose we'll need to go into the maze and dig him out, Wendover suggested philosophically. Sir Clinton dissented with a nod. I'm responsible for the lives of my constables, he said. I can take some brands of responsibility quick enough, but I won't shoulder the liability of sending good men to hunt armed vermin through a maze like that. They know nothing about its paths. He knows every inch of it. It would be sheer murder if I gave orders of that sort. No, there's a better way, but bear in mind that I gave him the chance of surrender first of all. Arthur fidgeted with his rifle. I know the maze as well as he does, he pointed out. I could get him out easily enough if he'd let me take on the job. Sir Clinton negatived the suggestion curtly. I've got a better ferret than you, my boy. If he gets driven into the open and looks like escaping, I'll let you wing him, but that's all you are to do. He wetted his finger and held it up in the air. Couldn't be better. There's just a faint drift in the air. You've got the stuff over by the boathouse, he added, turning to the constable. Right, we'll go across then, but keep well away from the maze as we go, for the beast may be hiding behind the outermost hedge, trying to draw a bead on us as we pass. Considerably mystified, Wendover followed Sir Clinton towards the river bank. When they reached the neighbourhood of the boathouse, he was still more astonished to find a number of sacks lying on the grass, evidently filled with some material. 3 spades were grouped close by. Again Sir Clinton held up his moistened finger and gauged the direction of the light airs that were blowing. Then, seeing the surprised faces of his companions, he pointed to the sacks. My ferret! Ardsley had gone over and inspected one of the bags. He rubbed his finger on the outside of one and then inspected the skin with interest. Then suddenly he laughed grimly. Sulphur! That's a cute notion. A ferret! Sir Clinton acknowledged the discovery with a smile that had more than a touch of the sinister in it. Simple, isn't it? Quite the Mikado touch, Ardsley commented. Sir Clinton said no more, but busied himself with giving orders to his subordinates. Wendover had grasped the meaning of the interchange between Ardsley and the chief constable. Sir Clinton meant to use the simplest poison gas of all, the fumes of burning sulphur. The light air currents would drift them over the maze, and Ernest Shandon would soon find his fastness converted into a death trap. He would have to come out into the open, and by that time he would be in such a state that he could be easily captured. Sir Clinton had issued his directions, posting his constables at points from which they could converge on the various entrances to the maze if necessary. Take no risks, he added finally. I don't want any fancy exploits today. The man who gets Shandon and suffers no damage in getting him will be the man who gets a good mark from me. I'll not have anyone hurt, understand. He dismissed the constables to carry his orders to their comrades, and then swung round to the rest of the group. You can get over yonder to that clump of rhododendrons, Hawkhurst. If he shows up anywhere within your zone of fire, you're to wing him. You're not to kill him. I'm trusting you to play the game, remember. Arthur nodded and betook himself to his post. 2 more guns will cover all but this side of the maze, Sir Clinton went on. You go over to the road, Wendover. From there, he pointed, you can cover young Hawkhurst's dead ground. I'll do the same on the other side. But first of all, we've got to get this stuff spread around a bit. He cut the twine at the mouth of the sacks, tilted out the sulphur, and began to distribute it with a spade. The others hurried to assist him and spread the yellow lumps under his directions. Now we can light it up, Sir Clinton said at last, when things had been completed to his satisfaction. These fireworks will give the thing a good start if you spray the sparks to and fro over the surface of the stuff. He produced some fireworks from a paper parcel as he spoke and set an example to his companions. Soon the sulphur caught fire, and Wendover, incautiously working on the leeward side, began to cough violently. "Keep to the windward side of the stuff," Sir Clinton advised. "Get it alight here and there. The flame will soon spread over the whole surface. Now I'm off." He picked up his shotgun and skirted the maze at a respectful distance as he made his way to his post. For a minute or two Wendover stolidly continued to tend the ferret, but he could not help wondering whether this method of criminal hunting really came within permitted bounds. His mind inclined more readily to active measures, and the devil's cookery was, as he phrased it to Ardsley, hardly the game. The toxicologist showed no sympathy with his point of view. "Driffield's quite right. Suppose tonight found him with a dead constable on his hands, perhaps a widow and some fatherless children to face? Would you care to be in his shoes? I wouldn't. Play the game? Bosh. It's not playing the game to chuck away your men's lives unnecessarily." He dug up some burning sulphur and distributed it over an unkindled patch. "Whew! This is a suffocating job. If it's like this now, it'll be fairly stifling on the lee side in half an hour." Stennis said nothing. Wendover, who was not in the secret of the secretary's love affairs, could not understand why Stennis looked almost as grim as Sir Clinton. The squire woke up all at once to the fact that he ought to be elsewhere, and he made his way to his appointed post. As he reached it, the report of the sporting rifle came from the clump of rhododendrons. "It's all right," he heard Arthur's voice raised in a shouted explanation. "I saw him at the gate, trying to climb over, so I let him have it above his head. That scared him. He's gone away now, back into the maze. He's got a pistol in his hand." Almost at once they heard Sir Clinton's shotgun fired. "Trying the entrances one by one to see if he can slip out," commented Arthur, with a certain malicious glee in his tone. Some minutes passed, then, to Wendover's astonishment, he heard the crack of the automatic pistol, and a bullet sang past him. "Not much sign of surrender about that," he admitted, as he got hurriedly under cover. "The beggar must have marked me down and tried a long shot through the hedge." Time flowed slowly on. Occasionally, with a slight change in the faint wind, some of the sulphur fumes drifted down to Wendover and caught his lungs. "It must be pretty thick in the maze, if a mere whiff of it gives one gip like that," he reflected. "The beggar must be half dead with the fumes by this time, for he gets the full blast of it." Another interval of quietness gave Wendover time to think over the situation. Up to that point he had gone through the business almost without trying to bring the morning's work into touch with normal life. The whole affair had had an impersonal quality, for from start to finish he had not set eyes on the man they were hunting. But that peculiarity had enhanced the rather unreal character of the adventure, lending it a touch of the fantastic in his mind. And the extraordinarily methodical procedure which had governed the transactions helped in some way to accentuate his feelings. It had all been as logical as a nightmare seems to be while one lives through it. Yet another shotgun report, from the sulphur station this time, showed that the murderer was still making attempts to slip away. After that, another period elapsed without any further alarms. The sulphur fumes were now so dense that Wendover, though out of the main line of drift, was becoming seriously troubled by them. He could hear Arthur coughing continuously in the rhododendron clump, but the muzzle of the rifle was never lowered even in the worst paroxysm. Quite obviously, Arthur meant to miss no chance of squaring the account for Sylvia. As that thought crossed his mind, Wendover seemed to see the whole Whistlefield case in a fresh light. Instead of the mysterious murderer lurking behind green walls of the maze, his mental vision threw up a picture of the real personality, Ernest Shandon. He could see him with his mind's eye, wandering along the paths of the maze, choking, desperate, seeking for some outlet to safety, and beaten back each time by the warning of the guns. And minute by minute the poison cloud was growing denser over his place of refuge, bringing nearer the inevitable end of the drama. And as this picture forced itself upon Wendover, he began to feel the nightmare growing more intense. It seemed almost incredible that Ernest Shandon, a creature despised by everyone for his shiftlessness and futility, could have planned and carried through this murderous work. Wendover, since he had been brought into intimate contact with Ernest, had felt nothing but boredom and derision. The man's dullness, his cowardice, his selfishness, had all impressed themselves strongly on the squire, and had produced a definite feeling of repulsion and contempt. Now he had to readjust his ideas. The dullness must have been merely an exaggeration. The cowardice had been a sham, since the murderer had no reason to fear anything for his own skin. And the selfishness, why, that was only a manifestation of callousness, without which no planned murder could be carried through. Instead of the insignificant figure which he had hitherto encountered, Wendover began to see instead a fresh personality hidden behind the mask, something going coldly to its deadly work, unrestrained by any normal feelings of humanity or even kinship, a modern minotaur in the labyrinth of the maze. Almost appalled by the vividness of the portrait which his mind had conjured up, Wendover stared across the grass at the wall of greenery which concealed from his gaze the actual form of the murderer. Then, as he gazed, there came once more the report of the automatic pistol, a single shot. And once more the waiting recommenced, unbroken by any incident. At last Sir Clinton appeared, with his gun at the trail round the corner of the maze. He signalled to Wendover and Arthur to rejoin him. "I think that's the end of the business," he said with stern satisfaction as they came up. "If I'm not much mistaken, that last shot was for himself. The game was up, and he must have been half dead with the fumes by now." He turned to Arthur. "Do you see now why I wouldn't let you touch him? If you had, then we'd have had all the bother of a trial for manslaughter at the least, and I don't guarantee that things would have gone smoothly in it. As it is, he's suicided, and no one's to blame but himself. And if you wanted to put the screw on him, could you have given it a harder turn than this?" He pointed towards the sulphur station. Arthur saw the point. "I expect you're right," he admitted, coughing as a fresh cloud of fumes drifted down upon them. "He must have had his dose before he gave in. You think that there's no doubt that he shot himself?" Sir Clinton's face showed what he thought. "Well, I tell you what," Arthur proposed. "There's a tree near the river bank which overlooks part of the maze if one gets high enough in it. Suppose I swarm up it and see if I can spot anything. Now that he's out of action, it's safe enough." Sir Clinton welcomed the idea. "That's a good scheme. He might be shamming after all, and I won't take any risks by sending anyone into the maze till I'm sure. If you keep well inside the leaves, you'll be safe enough in any case, and if you find he's dead, it'll save us a long wait." Arthur dropped his rifle and went off to put his project into execution. After he had gone, Sir Clinton turned to Wendover. "Not much family affection left in the Whistlefield circle, Squire. But can you wonder, after all? Friend Ernest wasn't the sort of man who'd attract much liking at the best, and that boy was very keen on his sister undoubtedly. I have a certain sympathy with his feelings, and I can tell you I've been on pins and needles for some time back lest young Hawker should find out who the murderer really was and take the law into his own hands at once. He wouldn't have been hanged, of course. That mental instability of his would have saved him. But it would have been a case for Broadmoor, and that's not much better than the drop in his state. It's a relief to get it all over as easily as we have done." In a few minutes Arthur came back with his report. "He's lying on the ground in Helen's bower. I couldn't see very clearly, but from the way he's lying I think he's done for." "Well," said Sir Clinton, "I'd better get into the maze and make sure of things." He reflected for a moment, then added, "I think perhaps it would be as well if all of us went in together. It's quite safe, I'm pretty sure of that, and there's something there I suspect that I shall want witnesses for." He summoned Ardsley and Stennis and explained the state of affairs to them. "If we douse the sulphur, the wind will clear away the fumes fairly soon. We can get water from the river and put it out. There's sure to be something in the boathouse which we can use for bringing water, a bucket or a baler of some sort." When it seemed safe, they entered the maze and soon reached Helen's bower. No danger awaited them. Ernest's body lay sprawling on the grass with a bullet wound in the head and the automatic pistol still clutched in his hand. Sir Clinton crossed over and knelt down beside the corpse. "We'd better search the body now and be done with it," he said, beginning the task as he spoke. "Here's something bulky in the breast pocket," he explained as he extracted it. An envelope with your name written on it, Stennis. Your property, perhaps?" Stennis glanced at the paper and a look of intelligence passed between him and Sir Clinton. "That's mine," he confirmed. It ought to have notes in it." The chief constable thrust his fingers into the envelope and, pulling out some of the contents, exhibited them to the company. "It's full of notes. Must be a fair sum. I'll keep this for the present, Stennis. You don't mind? It's best to do things formally, and you can always have it later on when you want it." "Oh, keep it certainly," Stennis agreed with a certain dull indifference. Sir Clinton continued his search, but the only thing of interest was a tin box which he opened carefully and held out for inspection. "More of these darts, you see?" He counted them rapidly. "Yes, that's right. This represents the balance of the lot after deducting the ones he used in the attack on Miss Hawkhurst and last night." He replaced the cover on the box and transferred the thing to his pocket. "That's all we need to do. You'd better have a look at the body, Ardsley. We'll need your evidence at the inquest. I'll send a constable in here to look after things until we can get the body removed." When Ardsley had finished his examination, they left the maze. "Go back to the house now," Sir Clinton directed, as they emerged from the entrance gate. "I'll have to pilot my men into the centre, you know. You can send the car down to meet me if you like." He turned back with the constables while the rest of the party got into the motor. No one seemed inclined to talk as they made their way up to the house. The events of the morning had been too bizarre to merge easily into everyday affairs. To Wendover it seemed as though he had spent the last hour or two in some world lying far beyond the normal bounds of probability. Already the siege of the maze was passing into the realm of the unreal in his mind, and he had difficulty in forcing himself to remember that it had cost the life of a man. But even while he reflected on this, a fresh surprise came upon him. As the car swept round in sight of the main entrance to Whistlefield, he heard a sharp intake of breath from Stennis and a suppressed exclamation from Arthur. He raised his eyes, and for a moment could hardly believe what he saw. There, at the top of the steps, stood Torrance and Vera Forrest, while between them was Sylvia, safe and sound except for the sling which supported her right arm. "Rather a surprise, I suppose," said Ardsley dryly, as he pulled up the car at the front door. End of chapter 17.